Jack Harmon had spent years hiding in the quiet arms of Montana, just a man, a dog, and the silence that kept their ghosts asleep. But on one cold autumn morning, Rex broke that silence. He ran off the trail, ears high, tail rigid, pulling Jack toward the ruins of St. Mary's Asylum, a place the town had long forgotten. There, beneath the roots and dust, the old soldier found a child's silver bracelet. One word was carved into it: Lila. And in that moment, Jack knew his dog hadn't disobeyed him. He'd led him back into a story that wasn't finished yet. Please support us by subscribing to the channel. Thanks you. The morning light over the Bitterroot Mountains carried silence like a hymn. Jack Harmon sat on his porch, the steam from his black coffee curling against the cold Montana air. Every morning began the same way, the slow ritual of stillness, the creak of old wood under his boots, and the quiet breath of Rex, the aging German shepherd who had once been his partner in a different kind of war. Together they had learned to live in the rhythm of the mountains, where routine was a kind of prayer, and silence was the only language that didn't lie. Jack's world was predictable until that morning, when Rex froze mid-step on the trail. His ears pricked, his muscles tightened, and without warning, he lunged forward, cutting through the aspen trees with a precision that was all instinct. Jack called out, the bark of command still sharp in his throat after all these years. But Rex didn't listen. He followed the dog up a ridge and into a clearing where the skeleton of St. Mary's Asylum rose out of the earth like a warning. Locals said it was haunted, that no bird dared nest near its broken roof. Jack didn't believe in ghosts, but when Rex began pawing at the dirt near the crumbling marble steps, his skepticism began to falter. Something metallic glinted beneath the soil. Jack knelt, brushed away the dirt with his fingers, and uncovered a small silver bracelet, the metal tarnished with time. One word was engraved in soft, looping letters: Lila. The name hit him like a quiet thunder. He remembered the posters that had hung in the post office 2 years ago, the smiling 8-year-old who had vanished without a trace. As the mountains settled back into silence, Rex sat beside him, tail still, eyes fixed on the dark shape of the asylum. That night, Jack placed the bracelet beside his medals on the table. The wind outside whispered through the trees, and for the first time in years, he thought he heard a child's voice carried in it, soft, pleading, and far too close. The next day, clouds rolled in over the ridges, bruising the sky to the color of ash. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the bracelet had called to him, that it had chosen him the way missions once did. He loaded his rifle, a flashlight, and a thermos of coffee into his old Ford pickup. Rex leapt into the passenger seat without being told, silent as a soldier reporting for duty. The road to St. Mary's had almost disappeared beneath weeds and moss, but the building still loomed ahead like the carcass of something that refused to die. Inside, the air was heavy and sour, thick with mildew and rust. His flashlight sliced through the darkness, landing on walls where paint peeled in long strips, revealing messages carved beneath by desperate hands. One phrase, barely visible, made him stop cold. "Please find me." Down the main corridor, Rex's nails clicked against the tile. He moved with intent, nose low, tail rigid. Jack followed him through a set of doors marked Ward C. The hinges groaned like a warning, and the beam of light caught the outline of a small, stuffed rabbit lying on the floor, its fur matted, one ear missing. Beside it sat a child's notebook, swollen and warped by damp air. Jack opened it carefully. On the first page, written in a shaky but determined hand, were 5 words. "The girl in the dark is still here." His heartbeat slowed, not from calm, but from recognition, the stillness of a man who has seen ghosts become real. Somewhere deeper in the building, water dripped rhythmically, echoing like a ticking clock. Then came a second sound, faint but unmistakable. The low hum of a lullaby sung without words. Rex's growl started deep in his chest. Jack raised the flashlight toward the source, the beam trembling slightly in his grasp. "Show me, boy," he whispered, and together they stepped toward the sound. By dusk, the asylum no longer felt like a ruin. It felt like a battlefield reclaimed by strangers. Sheriff Alan Cooper's SUV sat at the entrance, its headlights cutting through the fog, while two black FBI Suburbans idled silently on the gravel. Agent Dana Cole, tall, sharp-eyed, her Navy windbreaker stiff in the wind, greeted Jack with the precision of someone used to listening more than talking. She took his statement, asked no unnecessary questions, then turned her attention to Rex. "Good dog," she said softly, and it wasn't flattery. It was acknowledgement. Soon the halls were alive with movement, technicians in white Tyvek suits sweeping lights across the walls, cameras flashing like lightning in a dead sky. Jack stood apart, listening to the building breathe. He'd spent a lifetime recognizing tension in silence, and this one hummed like a tripwire. The smell of bleach and rust mingled with something older, something wrong. He followed instinct instead of orders. A vent in the ceiling had newer screws. The mortar along one wall was repacked, uneven. Near a sink, someone had arranged tiles to form a small channel where water dripped into a shallow pool. "Survival," he murmured, "not vandalism." When he pointed it out, Sheriff Cooper called over Agent Cole. She studied it quietly, then motioned for her team. In a small isolation room, Rex pawed at a loose section of the vinyl floor. Cole knelt, tapped twice. Hollow. The team peeled it back, revealing a crawl space no larger than a coffin, widened by desperate hands. Inside lay a folded hospital blanket, the foil of ration bars, and on the wall, a calendar made of 700 scratched lines. Beneath a cracked tile, they found another notebook, the cover showing a purple unicorn under a rainbow, half rotted but intact. Cole opened it gently. On the first page, written in large round letters, were the words, "The story of the Sun Queen in the Gray Hospital." The entries began in fear, but soon turned to imagination. Lila writing about her mother as a radiant queen who would one day pierce the dark with a sword of light. Jack felt something stir in him, something both old and raw. He had seen men survive captivity by inventing hope out of madness. Lila had done the same, and that strength terrified him more than any war. Cole closed the book, her voice low. "She adapted," she said. Jack nodded, eyes on the ceiling vent where fresh screws caught the flashlight's beam. "And then she moved," he said. Outside, thunder rumbled across the mountains, long and low. "He took her somewhere higher," Jack added, "somewhere he can watch the world." Cole looked at him, the decision already made in her eyes. "Then we find the place with the best eyes." Inside the temporary command trailer, fluorescent lights hummed above the map-strewn tables. A scan of Lila's final diary page glowed on the monitor, a shaky crayon sketch of a tall tower called the Castle of the Gray-Bearded Giant, a crooked path named the Walk of Shaking Stones, and at the top of the page, a box on stilts labeled High Post of the Wind. The analyst looked for coordinates, grids, anything rational. But Jack studied the drawing like a man reading weather, not by detail, but by feeling. The tower's windows were drawn too high, the path twisted like a river, and the thin-legged box looked exactly like a fire lookout station, one of those lonely cabins that once guarded the Montana forests from flames. "Osprey Lookout," he murmured. "Decommissioned, but still standing." Agent Cole nodded, her eyes narrowing with certainty. If she called it the high post, that's where he took her. They gathered their gear in silence. No sirens, no orders barked into radios, just boots, rifles, flashlights, and breath turning white in the cold dawn. The route was treacherous, down through the creek bed, over slick boulders that trembled underfoot, through wind that carried whispers of snow. Rex moved ahead like a ghost with purpose, pausing often to look back, as if guiding them by memory. When the sun broke through a gap in the clouds, the tower appeared, silvered wood against a bruised sky, its narrow stairs climbing toward a door that seemed to wait. Cole raised her binoculars. "Smoke from the stovepipe," she said quietly. "Someone's home." Jack checked the chamber of his rifle, exhaled once, and whispered to Rex, "Stay with me, partner." For the first time in years, he felt the weight of a mission he hadn't been assigned, but one that still mattered. They surrounded the lookout with the discipline of ghosts. Snow whispered across the boards as Cole signaled silently. One man moved to the right, another covered the hill. Jack's pulse slowed into the rhythm of training. Slow inhale, patient exhale. On Cole's cue, they breached the door. The cabin smelled of burnt wood and metal. 2 sleeping bags lay unrolled, a pot of water still warm on the stove, and a library book left open on a crate. A fairy tale about a mother riding a horse made of light. There was no child in sight, but Rex paced the floor, whining softly, circling until he stopped at the far wall. Jack pressed a hand against the floorboards. A tremor, a heartbeat of fear, moved through the wood. "Below," he said. They found a hatch disguised under a bedroll and forced it open. A short tunnel sloped down to a pair of storm doors built into the hill. From the other side came a metallic clank, then a woman's scream. The doors burst open, and a thin woman emerged dragging a child by the wrist. Her hair tangled, her eyes wild. She looked less like a captor than someone possessed by panic. Behind the grime, the little girl's face was pale, eyes dark with shock and hunger. Rex froze in place, muscles taut but silent. Jack stepped forward without shouting, placing himself between the girl and the chaos. "Lila," he said softly, not as an order, but as recognition. Cole's team closed in with quiet precision. The woman fell to her knees, sobbing, her grip loosening as Lila stumbled free. Jack knelt and wrapped his coat around her. For a moment, the world stood perfectly still. The snow stopped falling. Even Rex didn't breathe. Then the helicopter's distant thrum broke the silence, carrying light into a place that had forgotten it. Healing took time, measured not in days but in breaths. In the pediatric ward of Missoula General, daylight spread softly across pale walls. Lila Anderson sat beneath a blanket patterned with stars, her parents by her side, faces drawn but luminous. She rarely spoke, but her eyes moved constantly, reading every sound as if the world might vanish again. Rex was allowed inside once a week. His heavy head rested against her knee, and the girl's small fingers traced the old scars on his muzzle. Jack stood in the hallway, hands in his coat pockets, watching through the glass. He didn't intrude. He had learned the difference between saving someone and staying out of the way. One day, the girl asked to see the man with the dog. Jack stepped quietly into the room. Rex padded forward, tail low, gaze gentle. Lila reached out, tentative at first, then certain. "He listens," Jack said softly, "even when nobody else can." Her small laugh cracked the air like sunlight breaking through clouds. Months passed. The snow melted into the rivers. Jack's porch became a gathering place again, sometimes with the Andersons, sometimes with Lila alone, sketching trees and mountains. One Sunday, she handed him a drawing, Jack, Rex, and a yellow sun smiling above them. "For my godfather," she said. The words hit harder than any metal ever could. As they walked through the meadow, Rex's tail brushed against the grass, and the world finally felt simple again. A man, a dog, and a child who had learned to believe in the light. Some rescues happened with noise, others with quiet persistence. Jack and Rex didn't defeat a monster, they simply refused to let the light die. Lila didn't return to who she was. She became someone new, built from courage and grace. And in a small Montana town, where mountains hold their breath at dusk, 3 lives found their way back to one another. If you've ever felt lost in the dark, remember this. Somewhere out there, kindness still walks on 4 legs, loyalty still keeps its watch, and sometimes, when the world goes quiet, you'll hear a soft bark, reminding you that home is never too far.